So, just wanted to start the video by introducing ourselves. So, my name's Priyanka, and I have worked with Sisyphus Rocks films for about 7 to 8 years now. And in this video, we particularly wanted to look back on a music video that we had done about 4 years ago, which I had the chance of being an assistant director on, which is Karuna Cheyvan. And this is one of the many projects that I have done with SRF, and it's sort of a walk down memory lane. And before I jump into the questions that I have for you, would you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ajay Govind, and I'm a filmmaker, and uh, am part of Sisyphus Rocks Films. I mean, I guess started it about in 2014. Before that, we were WRI, Words, Rhythms, Images, which is like the umbrella agency still. And yes, like you said, I mean, Priyanka, we've been working together now for many years, and out of the many projects that we have done, I think Karuna Cheyvan is definitely one that's special because for multiple reasons. I guess we'll get into that when we start the conversation.
For this first question, which is been in my mind for a very long time now, the initial idea of the script was basically having these five different artists who are paying homage to the Lord in their own way through their art. But as the story progressed forward, the script became this narrative of three generations of artists paying homage to the Lord, and the iconography of Lord Krishna becoming a part of the dancer's legacy and also her memory that has been passed down to her daughter and then from the daughter to the grandson. So, how do you sort of look at this shift in the narrative?
So actually, it started as the starting point, like you said, this initial idea or concept was, to be honest, I think a very straightforward take on the song itself. And I think the idea was to not, many years ago, I'd done a docu-fiction film in Malayalam, and I'd interviewed an author about it. And I remember her telling me that, when you're working with mythology, or when you're working, and which is what I was doing at that time, when you're working with mythology and iconic characters from history, it's great to be innovative, and it's great to come up with new ways of telling stories, but you have to also kind of be mindful of the purity of these stories. And I guess somewhere that was probably what was keeping me kind of grounded. And I was thinking, okay, let's do something where these five different artists, so there'll still be a narrative in the sense of, a sculptor or a painter and a dancer and a vocalist, of course, each are creating in their own ways an image of Lord Krishna, and asking the question that the song is asking, and then it ends with that ultimate piece that has been created. So the narrative will kind of interweave these various artists. But then I think the reason this became something else with Karuna Cheyvan is because, well, Karuna Cheyvan has a lot of personal kind of connections with me, for me personally. So I wanted to explore those, and I wanted to talk about the fact that this is a song that my grandmother loved. This is a song that my grandmother used to sing, and my mother has heard her sing a lot. And therefore, I have heard from my mother about the song, So that, I think, chain of events in a sense, and that sort of passing down of that song, and of art in general, and the love for art in general, I think I wanted to capture that. So that is probably where the shift in stories came in. Yeah.
So, because this was coming from a very personal space of memory and also of association, and also this was an independent film for you. So, were there any specific challenges that you faced while making this film, or there was some huge roadblock that you had to overcome to make this project?
Um, As far as challenges are concerned with independent films or independent productions, I think the single most difficult challenge that everyone I'm sure faces, and I definitely have with all the projects that we've done, and we've done a bunch of them, right from a feature film all the way till, well, another feature film. So that entire spectrum. So I think the biggest challenge is time, is not having the kind of time you would want to tell a story. Um, Sometimes also the kind of time that a story deserves. And by that I mean sometimes it's the time that you put into pre-production, into planning that song or that video or that story, and sometimes it's about the shoot itself, it's the production itself, right? But in this case I think we were especially, because of the kind of, because we had decided to mount a pretty big production for the kind of, given the fact that it was independent, we were doing multiple locations, we had restrictions as far as time was concerned. In fact, I think any of whatever we've achieved was only possible because we've somehow always had a team that overcompensates for that. I mean, for example, Tanveer, who's the cinematographer, had done a lot of the wrecking himself. I mean, he had a very specific idea in his mind, as far as especially the dance bits were concerned, the bits that were shot at the monument, and he wanted to go and find sort of the best location with a certain kind of a light at a certain time, and he did that. And so I think that's probably how we were able to cover or manage those challenges. But on set, it remains a problem because you are, constantly, especially for me, I think, because I'm the producer director, not just the director. That's always kind of a thing that's always looming. Yes, you want a certain shot, you want a certain performance, but you also have to be mindful of what else you have left to do that day or that hour. So I think, yeah, that's definitely the only challenge um, that I can think of, and I don't think it was, yeah, Karuna Cheyvan specific. Yeah.
Could you talk a little about collaborating with Dr. Menon? What was her initial reaction when you approached her with the script?
Right. So I actually approached Dr. Menon with the song first, as in I told her that I'm planning on doing something like this, and I played the song, and of course she really liked the song. It was a song she also knew, um, and I think so. It was sort of before even the script had come into play, and I guess I had just known, given her expertise with dance and choreography, and also having seen her do a lot of fusion work. Actually, she is constantly tried to work and kind of push the boundaries of the art form in that sense. Again, keeping the purity in place, but doing that. So I think, given that it's a fusion piece itself, I was quite sure that she'll do justice to it, and it literally took her like no time. And that's when I realized that the techniques, it's like how a writer works, right? I mean, you already know, you have the grammar and the words and everything in place, um, and somebody just gives you a framework and you just kind of fit right into it. Seeing it come alive in that rehearsal room, both of us had gone to see it, if I remember correctly, right? And she had just got it, like this one particular piece. The piece that we worked on first, I remember, was the one that was to come at the end, where it had to be a photograph, because we needed to we needed to see what photograph we'll put on a photo frame later and so on. So it was just, yeah, magic. Yeah.
So within the video, there are multiple artists who bring in multiple levels of expertise. We of course have touched upon Dr. Menon's expertise, but we also had both Sir, and we also had two disciples of Dr. Menon working on the video with us. So first, maybe you want to talk about that.
Firstly, of course, Dr. Bose. I mean, it was because of this song that he had composed, and this interpretation of the song that he had, that this whole thing came together in the first place. And of course, I'm a student of his. I've learned music from him, and so for me, um, to be in a position where I'm directing him was definitely quite a. I wasn't nervous about it, to be very honest, because I think with both Dr. Bose and Dr. Menon, I'm very aware that they both have a lot of faith in me as the creator, and they literally just came on set and they would just kind of ask me what had to be done and they would just do it. It was literally like that. So uh, and I think which made my job much easier as a director, because um, here you have somebody who has composed this brilliant track and somebody who is choreographing it, and that's the heavyweight kind of bit of this song. The video is almost secondary to all of that. In terms of the disciples, similarly, there was Rohini and then there was Celeste, and both of whom are students of Dr. Menon. And she had, again, I was quite sure she would pick the right people. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, there was hardly any retakes as far as the dance was concerned. And also, I mean, the dancing bits were completely taken care of by Dr. Menon. So I literally just had to tell her where the camera will be placed, what we will be seeing, how much we will be seeing, and she took care of the rest with both Rohini and Celeste, and yeah.
So, of course, both all the artists brought in a wonderful experience, and it was definitely awe-inspiring to watch them and how they would just come alive and be on point. I think that is one of my fondest memories of the shoot, just their perfect execution. But apart from the artist, one definitely does notice when you watch the video, the other thing one does notice is the visual landscape. The script gave you the space to sort of imagine that in a more confined space, say maybe an ancestral house, right? But you chose to go through this really varied visual landscape where you have the ruins of Delhi, where you have a river, where you have an indoor space and an outdoor space. So I was just wondering what led to that decision and not sort of take the easy way out when it comes to an independent film.
Hmm. Um, Again, um, from what I can imagine, because I don't really remember very specifically the kind of what led to the decision making. I'm pretty sure it was Tanveer who kind of pushed us to kind of expand the vision in a sense, because we're anyway making a video it already, and time is the most premium thing in a sense, right? And everyone's willing to give that time, um, right? Nobody's holding back and nobody's saying, oh, we have to do this in half a day, and so on. So why not kind of give the song this wide visual landscape? Like you said, we were in Garmukteshwar, which is about 100 odd kilometers from Delhi. We were in the ruins in Mehroli at 5 in the morning, and getting in there for very specific time. And that's where, like I said, Tanveer's Recce had come in very useful, right? We just have to execute it in this much time or not. Similarly with Garmukteshwar, all that I think was really, I think I'm pretty sure the credit is to him for pushing us to say, hey, let's do this. Because I mean, again, going back to your first question, which was my original idea. The idea was, this is an independent production. Let's be a little, careful. Let's just like go inside a big studio space, but then do different things there. Versus here we have, like you said, like three very different locations, and yeah, I definitely think it contributes to the scale and to the story itself. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would be guilty of tooting our own horn, but I think it definitely adds that extra layer to the video and to the sort of magic realism that is a part of the video.
Right.
And speaking of magic realism, I want to touch upon a very special memory from the video, which is also reflected within the video, and gives it a magic realism touch. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, yes, I do. Apart from the two dancers, there was also this young boy, Vaishnav, who was part of the story. Um, Again, fortunately, Rohini, his mother, was playing his mother's role. Um, didn't have to do much in terms of managing Vaishnav, but what I realized is, people constantly talk about how difficult it is to work with kids, and I think one of the reasons I discovered during the course of that production is because kids are able to see through the entire process after a while, and they probably can't understand why it has to be done 100 times. Why there have to be retakes and like again and again and again. And I remember, like, eventually, even before I would ask him if it's okay, he would say okay, like from in front of the camera, and I would be, and yeah, it was really amusing. And this particular bit I remember where he's hiding from his mother. He suddenly comes behind. He's hiding behind a curtain, and out of nowhere, he has these petals that he throws at her, and this like magical moment. And of course, he has to throw it towards the camera and imagine that his mother's standing there, and so on. Multiple takes. It took a lot of takes, and we were somehow just not able to get it right. Either his look was not right, and eventually the bit that's in the video is him kind of throwing the petals, and then he looks up. And I remember when we, in the final cut, when you look at the film, it really just looks like he's played this little mischief, and he's been asked to play this little trick by Krishna, and he's this little game, while it's actually me who's standing there, and he's looking at me for approval. He's making sure, like, I've done, and I'm okay. Okay, is this okay? Is this take fine? You know, but that's the beauty of, I guess, films. When you watch it, you don't know the making of it.
And I think that's why it becomes pertinent to also sort of take this journey down the memory lane and sort of
Yeah,
talk about, uh, things that have been done.
yeah, yeah,
Because sometimes you are not able to capture the moment in the hustle and bustle of a shoot.
yeah.
But I think this sort of does justice to the video. So, I mean, I'm really thankful to Dr. Menon that she gave us this opportunity. Just
Right.
one last question,
Sure.
um, which is more of a personal question. Many of the younger practitioners are bringing their own signature to classical art forms. Maybe, an example would be choreographing pieces to, say, pop songs.
Mm.
But you took this very conscious choice to sort of move away from that trend and choose a piece which was more classical in nature. So I just wanted you to talk a little bit about that.
So I think my first responsibility, firstly, it was not a conscious decision to say, okay, if this is a trend, one doesn't want to do this, or so on, because trends keep changing, and you'd never know what the trend was in 2016 when we shot this video, right? I mean, that's no one's going to know that in 2020. So at that point in time, I think one was just being like, I think we were really just being true to the story and to a type of storytelling. And it didn't make sense to do a video that would be anything else but just like this soft and flowing kind of, literally, uh, piece, because that's what the song was. And I think, as far as the song was concerned, Dr. Bose had also, as far in terms of the fusion, it was a fusion of Indian classical and Western classical. So he had also taken it to a certain level, right? It's not like he infused elements of rock in there. I had this conversation with him specifically, and he said, that one has to kind of be true to what one believes in, right? And to what extent one can. So I'm sure to a purist, that's already kind of going away from what should be. So I think as far as the video is concerned, you have to kind of just be true to your own style of storytelling, the kind of story you want to tell. And this was, like I said, at the end of it, it really became a very personal thing, because I was also making this video eventually to be kind of screened at my mom's 60th birthday. And that was like kind of, that became the underlying this thing, where this whole thing is like a gift to my mother, who has in her turn gifted art, or a love for art from to me, right? That quality probably kind of needed this sort of a treatment. I don't think any other treatment or any other style of storytelling would have quite worked. So yeah, that's what I think.
Well, that's, yeah, that's really, I think, the kind of sort of sensibility that an artist brings to the table, that you don't always have to follow the trend. You can also be guided by other things in your life. If
Right.
what is art if it is not intensely personal, right?
Right, absolutely. And I think, and of course, like I said, with both Dr. Menon and Dr. Bose being a part of the project, I think they have already taken a lead, as far as I'm concerned, by saying that innovation or any kind of fusion has to be done not for the sake of doing it, but uh, for for where you feel that you can add something, right? So I feel like, for instance, eventually now the song, the video, is not about the lyrics at all. The lyrics are, translated in the beginning of the song, and kind of that's where they end. The song is something else. The story is something else, in a sense. So that level of interpretation, one is already brought in, right? So you've already kind of moved away from, again, that original idea of just keeping it simple and saying, hey, this is a prayer to Lord Krishna and his image. So having done that, then it's about how far you want to go, and for what reasons. So I think, yeah, so I think the treatment kind of was inbuilt in the story in that sense. Yeah. Mhm.
Well, that's about the questions that I had for you. And thank you so much for taking the time. And I have personally really enjoyed it. uh, it is always a pleasure to, of course, work on SRF projects with you. And I think the cherry on the cake is to be able to have these intimate conversations and walk down memory lane and talk about the projects that we have done together. And I definitely want to thank the entire SRF team. Of course, they are always so wonderful and go above and beyond. Definitely Dr. Bose, and most of all, Dr. Menon, who sort of gave us this space and this idea to sort of be able to do that.
Right. Great. Thank you so much.